Today, Chris and I are going to talk about the static detection of backdoors, and we'll be talking about doing that in both source code and binary methods. I'm Chris Wysopal, CTO and co-founder of Veracode. Veracode is a static binary analysis company. Previously I was at Symantec at Stake and way back in the day at the Loft, and you may know me from such famous tools as LoftCrack and Netcat for Windows, which I've been told it has been used as a system backdoor, but I'm not positive. I'll let Chris introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Chris Eng, Director of Security Research at Veracode. Previously also been with Symantec and at Stake. Before that, the Department of Defense for a little bit. I worked on the less popular than LoftCrack at Stake web proxy tool, which if you were doing web pen testing 5 or 6 years ago, you may be familiar with. So this is a quick overview of our talk. Let's go through background about backdoors, talk about some different backdoor mechanisms that we've grouped them into after doing a survey of the past 20 or so years of backdoors. Talk about some additional detection techniques around those. Talk about the idea of malicious code and other vulnerabilities as potential backdoors, and then conclude, take some questions at the end. Just a little pop culture here.
Yeah, I think probably everyone has seen War Games, but you might not remember the scene that we're going to play that well. And War Games kind of introduced the idea of the smart aleck high school kid as a hacker to American culture, and kind of started that imagery in the early 80s. And it also introduced the concept of the backdoor to popular culture, which I think before that was probably a pretty obscure notion, and backdoors plays a key role in the movie War Games. So this is our entertainment.
Can you wait here?
Why?
Because these guys can get a little nervous. Jim.
Oh, Lightman.
Hi, Lightman.
I want you to take a look at this.
Hey, what's that?
I wanted Jim to see that.
Wow, where'd you get this?
I was trying to break into Protovision. I wanted to see the program for their new games.
Hey, wait, Jim, I'm not through yet.
Remember you told me to tell you when you were acting rudely and insensitively? Remember that? You're doing it right now. Theater-wide biotoxic and chemical warfare. This didn't come from Protovision.
You bet it didn't. Ask him where it did come from, Jim. Go ahead, ask him.
I told you already.
Looks military to me. Definitely military. Probably classified, too.
Yeah, but if it's military, why does it have games like checkers and backgammon?
Maybe because those are games that teach basic strategy.
Jim, how do I get into that system? I want to play those games.
You're not supposed to see any of that stuff. That system probably contains the new data encryption algorithm. You'll never get in there.
Hey, I don't believe that any system is totally secure. I bet you Jim could get in.
Yeah, I bet you couldn't.
I bet you he could.
Well, you'll never get in through the frontline security, but you might look for a back door.
I can't believe it, Jim. That girl standing over there listening, and you're telling her about our back doors?
Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head, back doors are not secrets.
Yeah, but Jim, you're giving away all our best tricks.
They're not tricks.
What's backdoor?
Well, whenever I design a system, I always put in a simple password that only I know about. That way, whenever I want to get back in, I can bypass whatever security they've added on. That's basically what it is.
Yeah?
Okay, you really want to get in, find out as much as you can about the guy who designed the system.
Oh, come on. I don't even know the guy's name.
Where are you guys dumb? You guys are so dumb. I got this thing all figured out. I figured it out all by myself.
Oh, yeah, Melvin? How would you do it?
The first game on the list. Go right through Falcon's Maze.
So I guess Jim here is a programmer. He's programming classified systems, and he's putting backdoors in. So I wonder how many programmers have thought of that over the years. So let me just go through the major categories of backdoors just to frame what we're going to talk about. There's a category backdoor called a crypto backdoor, which is a designed weakness in a crypto algorithm. So whoever implements this algorithm, there's some sort of certain keys can be weak, or you can be able to perhaps break the algorithm quicker. And it's something that we're not going to talk about, but I just wanted to have it in there for completeness. System backdoors are probably the most popular reference when people talk about backdoors is talk about backdooring an entire computer system, and that's typically done with a piece of malware or a rootkit, where essentially if you get that piece of software on the system, it's not supposed to be there essentially, and you're backdooring the entire system. What we're going to talk about today is application backdoors, which is something which is inserted by someone who has access to the source tree or a binary distribution point, and they're taking a piece of presumably legitimate software which the system administrator is going to install on their machine and thinks that everything's okay, and they're putting in something that's going to bypass the normal security mechanisms of that piece of software. Now, of course, this could result in a system compromise also, and you'll see that a lot of application backdoors do have command shell access where you can run arbitrary commands on the system, but it doesn't necessarily need to compromise the system. It could just access the data that application has access to. You could think of a backdoor in a database might just be able to access data in the database and not the entire system. And generally, we're going to give examples of PHP and C programs, show some code with backdoors, but any programming language could be used. So, what are typical targets of backdoors? Web application seems to be a pretty popular one. We have some examples. Web applications are running as a server. They have access to the network. Seems like a really nice thing to backdoor if you're looking for a way to get onto servers. Any kind of server application is generally pretty good. You want to if you're picking your backdoor target, you want something which is running all the time. Typically, something that has network access is better because it won't look like an anomaly for the software to be communicating over the network. Network appliances seem to be a popular place. It's not clear whether these are all intended to be put in by the manufacturer or not. It seems like for support purposes, they like to put a backdoor in. So if the user locks themselves out of the appliance, there's a way of still supporting that system. And we have some examples of those. And finally, operating system is probably the holy grail for someone who wants to put in a backdoor, because not only do you have administrative access, but it's very, very widely deployed. And there was a case where Linux was attempted to be backdoored, which we talk about. So, there's a lot of motivation to put a backdoor in code if you have access to that source tree, because you're going to get your access to systems you wouldn't normally get access to, because maybe the system is very well maintained, has multiple layers of security, and it'd be hard to social engineer a particular system engineer to get something on there. But if they use a particular kind of software, and you can hit the distribution point, or it's open source, and do that, you have the administrator installing your access onto the system. Typically, when you have an application backdoor, you're using the normal networking traffic that the application would be using, so it doesn't show up to an IDS, because it just looks like the regular usage of the system. So that's another nice benefit of doing this. And I think part of the motivation is just, even if you don't attempt to be malicious, just like Jim in the movie, he just puts one in because he might someday want to get back in. and he has access, so he's going to go ahead and do it. So what we're going to talk about today is detecting backdoors through static detection. There's certain classes of backdoors which probably could be done with dynamic detection, but a lot of what backdoors are, it's hidden functionality, it's hidden code paths in the system that aren't typically exercised unless you already know they're there. So it's difficult to find them using dynamic analysis. Now, of course, this is going to be pretty imperfect. We can't determine what all application logic is going to be. But by layering a few different techniques together, hopefully we're going to be able to catch some of them. Another interesting thing we found from just surveying the different backdoors that have been discovered over the last 20 years is if there was a backdoor in a binary, something that was just distributed in binary form, it typically took years for that backdoor to be discovered. And if it was an open source program, some of the backdoors lasted for up to a few months, but most were detected within days. So you could see that if you're able to scan the source, or obviously you can just do human review of the source, it's much easier to detect them. And I don't think a lot of people, when they audit code for vulnerabilities, are necessarily looking for backdoors. So this is these are some of the rules we have for looking for them can be added to a normal security audit. So our first category is special credentials, which is probably the most popular and simplest kind of backdoor. This is like what Jim talks about in war games. He just puts in his own special username and password. But it could also be a password hash. It could be a key. Essentially what it is it's something that's hard-coded into the application that will bypass the normal password table or keys. So the first, one of the first ones we found is Borland's interbase in 2001 was discovered to have a backdoor in it. And this lasted in the code for 7 years when the program was distributed in binary form. It wasn't until it was open sourced that it was quickly found when someone started auditing the code. So the way this one worked is when the password database is created in the database for the first time, it inserts a hard-coded username politically and a hard-coded password correct into that password table. And so every instance of Borland Interbase 4, 5, and 6 would have this password that would work. It ended up being equivalent to administrative access on the system because you could write your own user-defined functions. So here is the code that actually put in the back door. So if you can see at the top here where we have locksmith user, what it's doing is it's creating a database record. It's copying the static value locksmith user into the record. Then it's coming down here and it's taking the static password, locksmith password, and it's doing a crypt on it, and it's copying that into the record, and then it's down the bottom here, it's inserting into the database. So you can see that, if you can find the code, this is going to be fairly easy to find because you can look for the crypt routines, and you can look for